Welcome to Life Unlimited, where we explore the stories and people shaping our communities and creating positive change. I'm Nora Oliver, your host, a certified life coach, author, and the founder of 10X Nora Oliver. My mission is to help people elevate their lives, find purpose, and take action, whether that is in their personal journey, their family, or through leadership in their community. Today, we're stepping inside the Massachusetts State House with State Representative Richard Haggerty, a lifelong Woburn resident and dedicated public servant who spent years working to improve the lives of families across our district. We'll walk through what it really means to serve in the state government, the challenges, the responsibilities, and the rewards, and how decisions made here at the State House ripple out to impact everyday people across Massachusetts. It's a conversation about leadership, community, and what it truly takes to make a difference. Well, thank you so much for having us here. I really appreciate it. So this is so good to be here.
I'm happy to have you. It's the people's building. The State House is a place where we want them to come to feel like it's their government in action. And at the end of the day, we try to invite people in and give them an opportunity to see what we're doing here and how it all works.
Yes, I appreciate it. I do have a few questions that I've written down that I really want to ask you, that I feel like so many in our communities don't even know what it is that you do or how they can come up to you for any help or support. So if you don't mind, I know many people hear the title state representative but may not know what it truly means. Can you explain what your role involves on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I kind of put it in a few different buckets, right? At the end of the day, one of the big things we do is constituent services. I would put that kind of number one on the list. We make sure that people from our communities, from, in our case, Woburn and Reading in the 30th Middlesex District, have access to government, and when they have issues with government, we're able to hopefully shake those issues loose and help them, whether it's unemployment issues or anything else related to state government, R&V issues, pick a state agency where somebody's having a challenge. We're the arm of government to help them fix that and hopefully turn no's into yeses. Beyond that, of course, the legislative side of things is another big part of the role, and I file all kinds of personal legislation that I care about and that I think our district cares about, from primary care legislation this session to the lead environmental bill for the Environmental League of Massachusetts this past session, to a variety of other bills that kind of all are all encompassing. I feel like
there's always so many of them every year, right?
Yeah,
that you're always working.
We're always working towards things, because it takes multiple sessions a lot of times to get these things going.
Right.
So we file all kinds of bills that people care about in our community, or that I personally care about. And then thirdly, I would say is my chair of the Housing Committee is kind of the other part of our legislative work that we do. From an administrative standpoint of view, people sometimes forget it, but at the end of the day, this building needs to have individuals who are kind of operating as leaders and figuring out how to have public hearings, how to allow people to testify and get public input on bills, and figure out kind of how the pieces of legislation are going to come together. So as housing chair, I'm able, and I appreciate the speaker and giving me the confidence, having confidence in me to be able to get this role. That position is incredibly important. Today, maybe there's no other more important issue facing our Commonwealth than the issue around housing. Affordability, making sure people have access to housing, addressing homelessness, increasing production, making sure affordable housing is accessible to people, giving developers the tools they need to get more housing created in our Commonwealth. All of those things are kind of all on our plate right now. And we're trying like heck to advance the issues we care about. And then thirdly, I would just say the other component, I think, as being a rep, is really making sure that people have an opportunity from our community to directly engage with me on the issues that they care about.
That's a big one, too.
And that means everything from emails to telephone calls to being in downtown Woburn or wherever the case may be, downtown Reading, and making sure that we're listening to people and what they care about.
That's incredible. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the biggest responsibilities you have to both at the State House and people in Woburn and Reading? Like, what are the biggest responsibilities that you would say you have to work on, or you work on now?
So, I always tell people there's times when we're 351 cities and towns, and there's times when we're, individual communities. So there are times when there are competing interests. And I think that may be just one of the hardest jobs that I have in this building, is making sure that I'm listening to people in my district and understanding where they're coming from, while at the same time making sure that we're advancing policies that are kind of good for the entire Commonwealth, and making sure that we're all swimming in the same direction. The economic success of our state is not reliant upon one community or one area of our state. The economic success of our state is something that affects everybody. And if we don't have economic success, then we don't have money to educate our kids or pay our teachers or pay our firefighters or our police officers or invest in life sciences or green tech or all the other areas that we're trying to make sure we make wise investments in. So, saying all that, I think it's incredibly important to make sure we kind of balance that in a fair way. And I think I do that. And I think that hopefully residents can understand that.
Yep. No, I think this is great. I know many people in Woburn, at least, I know you're very well known there and liked, which I think is great. Just a really quick question, because many people I don't believe they know. How many state reps are there in Massachusetts?
So there are 160 state representatives.
So that's many of you that are working together. Wow.
So every district represents, I think it's about 50,000 residents of the Commonwealth. And then there are 40 senators in the Commonwealth, which are the other branch, we'll call them, our friends in the Senate. So. Right,
but you all work together at some point or another, which is great.
Definitely.
This is good. Okay. Okay, so I know you talked a little bit about this, but what committees do you currently serve on, and why are they important to Massachusetts residents?
Sure, yeah. So I serve as chair of the Housing Committee, as I mentioned earlier. The Joint Committee on Housing deals with everything related to housing, whether it's 40B developments to making sure that our MRVP program, which is one of our major grant programs to help lower income folks access funding for housing, to development issues relating to zoning, to helping our public housing authorities, making sure they have the tools they need to succeed. So that all falls within the Housing Committee, and that's really where I spend a great deal of my time. We hold public hearings over the course of the term of where I have this role, which started back in February, and we allow people the opportunity to be able to testify on all the bills that are before the committee, which we have about 200. Allow the public their chance for input, allow advocates their chance for input, allow legislators their chance for input. And then as a committee, we kind of make the call as to some of the bills we'll advance, some of the bills we might not advance, some of the things we think are good ideas, not good ideas. Some things are tweaked and adjusted over that period of time. And it's quite a process. But that's my main function within the building now.
If I may, just a follow-up question to that. On the Housing Committee, has the Trump administration affected, with everything going on right now, the housing? Yeah,
so I think that the federal changes that are taking place are real and have direct impacts, right? I had some of our friends from our housing authorities in this morning talking with me about some of the changes that HUD made, which is the federal arm of the executive branch who handles housing matters, housing and urban development. And one of the decisions they recently made was that they're no longer going to translate into other languages many of our housing applications. They're doing an English first policy. So when you see those kind of things happen, it's really unfortunate. I mean, that's a matter of civil rights, making sure that people have access and can understand the documents that are before them when they're applying for public housing. And everybody out the gate doesn't always speak English. So those kind of things that are happening at the federal level are real. The adjustments and the cuts that are being made on the funding side of things are really concerning. We think that the impacts to Massachusetts is going to be in the range of $3.5 billion over the next 3 years of the cuts from the current administration.
It's a big impact.
It's a big impact. So we're monitoring it. I mean, these things are, I don't have to tell you or anybody else who's watching this. I think every 30 days or so things seem to be changing, and we're in a position to be able to react, hopefully. Our main job in this building and in my role is to hopefully make sure government works for people. That's who we represent, and we want to make sure that the role that we have is enhanced, and that the ability for us to deliver for our residents, making sure the government works, is done. And that's where I'm focused.
That's great. I think that's a good committee to be on. Okay, can you highlight a piece of legislation you worked on that you feel has had a meaningful impact on families or communities here?
Sure. Coercive control.
That was a big one.
Yeah, you and I have spoken about this in the past, and so originally I had somebody reach out to my office on this issue who was a domestic violence survivor, and she raised the issue at the time and was a victim and somebody who had been very adversely impacted and abused by a loved one or a parent loved one, I guess, and clearly the laws weren't working. So we worked with her as an advocate and as a victim, and we worked with other agencies to craft legislation through the National Conference of State Legislators, and we filed a bill to put coercive control language into our laws. And we worked with the Judiciary Committee Chairman, Mike Day, who was great on this issue, and we were able to get that into the update of our abuse prevention statute that we completed last session.
Yes, right. It was signed in June, I think, of 2024.
Correct.
And effective in September, which is great. It's already been a year that it's been active, and I know for a fact it's already helped many, many families, especially children.
Yeah.
They should not be put in that situation, but having this law, it's making an impact. And that, I'm so proud that you have worked on that and that our our committees are working together to pass laws like that to protect our people.
100%. And I think that, part of what we was explain to people to help them understand the difference between physical abuse and the lack of physical abuse that is in some cases just as bad when you start talking about controlling somebody mentally, controlling somebody financially. Those types of things can have an incredibly detrimental impact on individuals' lives and family life and children. And we needed to make sure that victims had better tools in the toolbox with regards to our courts so that they can be properly represented and that abusers are held accountable.
I actually am a victim of domestic violence and originally abused and financially abused in every way possible you can think of. After I was then coercive controlled in many forms of ways.
Yeah.
The physical abuse didn't happen, but now it was, the abuse was continuing. So this law, it's already been able to help me, and I'm thankful for that. And so many other families are thankful for that too. Yeah. So that's great.
Well, I appreciate your advocacy and so many others who had the courage to stand up and explain why this was really important to them and why it was probably important to thousands of others who maybe didn't have the courage or the voice at the moment to really stand up, and we think we were able to help.
Right, yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about housing, healthcare, and education, as they're always big topics, right? Yeah. How do you approach tackling such complex issues? Yeah,
so, housing I kind of talked about already, and I think that, all of them fall within our committee structure, and bills are filed, they go through a committee process, people are able to testify, advocates are able to testify, and then, committees kind of decide what's going to advance and what's not going to advance. That's kind of the process side of things. Personally, I can talk to you, specifically about education, right? So education is a matter where in Massachusetts, a lot of our educational decisions are made at the local level, right? Our school committee has substantial control over the decisions that are being made. Our role in state government is certainly to put some parameters around that and what that's going to look like. But on balance, our biggest role is really directing resources, i.e. funding, to local school districts to make sure that they have the tools they need to give our teachers, that they have the tools available to be able to give our students everything they deserve.
Build schools, I think you obviously work on that as well, especially we just had redistricted in Woburn. We have a few schools that definitely need some work.
Yeah, so I know the school committee is now looking at whether or not to advance either a middle school or elementary school, and they're going through that locally. And at some point, they'll make a decision to advocate with the Mass School Building Authority for funding, and that's something that we're going to be helpful with and be kind of standing shoulder to shoulder with the community on and making sure that they get fair access to state funding. That can translate into anywhere between 40 and 50% today probably of overall cost of the project, which is a huge benefit to taxpayers.
Huge benefit.
That's a real. And by the way, it's taxpayers' money either way.
Right.
But we want to make sure the Woburn taxpayers in this example are able to access those MSBA funding mechanisms. We did it in Reading. Reading's building the Killam Elementary School right now. they're finalizing that project, and we were able to help them access some of those state dollars. And Woburn has a terrific track record on this, by the way. We used it when I was in the city council to be able to build a new Goodyear, to build a new Harold Wyman, be able to build our high school
as well.
Our White School, and the Shamrock School. All of those went through the MSBA process. So we know it works, and we want to make sure that our taxpayers are being taken care of and getting their fair share.
That's incredible. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to, I have a few other questions.
Sure.
What are the main ways your office helps constituents, right, like you mentioned, who reach out with concerns or problems? I know we talked a little bit about this, but what other ways, how do they come to you?
Yeah, so it varies. We hold monthly, typically we hold monthly office hours in the community where folks are able to come down and sit and have a cup of coffee or chat with us about what they care about and help us understand kind of where they're coming from and the different issues that are maybe
That's
before
awesome.
us.
So they can just show up and...
Just show up and talk,
Wow.
which is really, it's somewhat informal, but maybe in some ways more beneficial because it's a little more casual, a little more like, hey, why did you do this? Why did you vote that way? Or, geez, I really care about this. Can you look into this for us and help us understand how we can advocate better to see this take place. All those types of things I think are really important, and making sure that we have boots on the ground, making sure that we are in the community listening to people is really, really important. So certainly we do that part of it. People obviously email our office and they reach out. We get plenty of emails, let's put it that way. Plenty of voice messages of people who are advocating for or against different pieces of legislation that we're looking at and maybe we're supporting or maybe not supporting. There are upwards of, I think it's, 9,000 bills filed this year, this
Wow.
legislative session.
That's
So there
a
are
lot.
times when people will actually reach out to our office and say, hey, did you know about this? And we'll say, no, we didn't know about that. Let's look into it. And there's been plenty of times when we've been educated by a constituent on something that they care about and been able to then maybe help them and more importantly, maybe help the legislation move.
That's true. Don't assume that of the 9,000 something bills, right?
Correct.
It's almost impossible to go through each single one.
Yeah.
And there's new ones filed every single day.
Correct.
So
100%.
I get that. So if they have an issue, just come to you, email, or show up in the, those days, coffee time, whatever questions they may have.
And we post all that stuff on Facebook, so people have, put it in the
Good.
newspaper. People have want to come down and talk to us. And typically if, I'm available by phone, call the office, we can always chat. I try to be
Good.
available as I can to people to make sure that we're listening.
That's good. That's awesome. Okay, can you share an example of a local issue you were able to help resolve or bring to attention?
A local issue, that's a great question. Well, I guess, I think broadly speaking around funding, we continue to make sure that we're delivering funds for the community. So people, our mayor and our city council and everybody in our community is always advocating for funding. And I think that that's something we've been able to listen to and make sure we deliver on. So this past budget cycle, we were able to deliver $100,000 for the James McEwen Boys and Girls Clubs so that they could buy a bus to be able to make sure that the kids who go to the club are able to go to travel basketball or able to do field trips, be able to help these kids who are going down to the club access other parts of our state and have different experiences in life. We were able to access funding to be able to deliver a bus for our senior center to make sure that our seniors have a bus to be able to take them to doctor's appointments, back and forth to the senior center, to the library, to City Hall, whatever the case might be. So that's getting delivered, I think.
That's impactful.
Yeah, this month. It's going to be great. We were able to support both our police and fire departments this past session with some direct funding, which has been wonderful. Another project we worked on was to try to direct some funding, I think $100,000 for our downtown to enhance the facades, the awnings, and create a sign program. And the Woburn Redevelopment Authority, with the support of American Canada, is working on that and utilizing those funds and getting those kind of out in the street so we can enhance downtown Woburn.
No, that's incredible. Yes.
So you kind of get through the list of things and not to make it all about money, but that's a big part of the role. At the end of the day, my job is to deliver for our residents to make sure that they get their fair share of state funding. And that's on top of things like Chapter 70 funding, which is our educational funding, which I touched on earlier, and then our Chapter 90 funding, which is all the money that is used to be able to pave roads and fix sidewalks and repair crosswalks. And
right, many that we might not even realize are being done.
100%.
Right.
So this year we saw, I guess, a 34% increase just in Chapter 90 funding this year for our community, which was a huge increase. And you're going to see that in more local roads being paved, and that's kind of the nuts and bolts of government sometimes, but something that's really important. If you got a road that hasn't been paved in 25 years and you got a pothole in front of your house that Amazon truck keeps hitting every afternoon, then it matters to you when it gets paved.
Right, so say something, bring it up.
Yeah.
Right, that's the time to have coffee with you, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you lived in Woburn your whole life.
Yeah.
Right? How has your local upbringing shaped the way you lead and represent?
It's a great question. So, my family came to Woburn about 1855.
Wow.
So a little while ago, and they bought their first home on Harrison Ave in about 1860, just up the street from the police department. It still sits there. It's a small, tiny 4-bedroom home. And my great-grandfather started the local newspaper in 1901, and he was in charge of handing out the rations during World War II. And my grandfather was on the Recreation Commission in the 60s, and my dad's involvement in all kinds of things Woburn, from creating Woburn girls basketball to his involvement with Woburn girls soccer program. I say all that because my family. I can't possibly talk about my role in service without talking about my family's role in service, and kind of setting the stage for me to be able to kind of sit here and be able to do the work I do. So I care an incredibly great deal about our city, and I want it to succeed in every way that you want any community to succeed. So for me to be able to be sitting here and representing the community I love and have a little bit of history in back of me while I do it is special and important, and something that I don't take lightly.
That's amazing. I mean, it's some great experience from your family, right? Very heavily involved in Woburn.
Yeah.
All these years, so that's awesome. Okay, so what do you think makes Woburn and Reading unique, and how do you carry that into your work at the State House?
That's great. Well, I think they're different communities, right? Woburn's a little different than Reading, and Reading's a little bit. Yeah. So, but I think that you bring the message of the people. I think when I go out and I talk with people at office hours, or when I go to town hall in Reading or city hall in Woburn, you listen to elected officials and kind of understand where they're coming from, and that helps shape kind of what you're advocating for. It also shapes how you want to make your case towards constituents around what you care about. Woburn and Reading are different places, but they're similar. People on the nuts and bolts level, people care about kitchen table issues.
Right, I was going to say, they're people, right? Yeah. You still need the same laws that you worked on, right? Those bills to pass, which are going to help both.
Absolutely, and they care about many of the same issues. They care about whether or not they can afford to heat their home, whether or not they, their electric bills, going up this year, or whether or not their kids getting a great education or not. Whether or not their downtown is clean and safe, whether or not their police department and fire department are able to respond in a timely manner. All those types of things I think are somewhat
similar.
Yeah, right? Very, very similar between the two communities, and for that reason it's helpful for me, because I think that I represent an entire district, not just one community.
Right, yeah. Okay, what has been the most rewarding part of serving as a state representative?
That's great. So, people always sometimes have, I think, a thought that maybe sometimes politicians get knocked around a little bit, and people in public service get knocked around a little bit. But what they sometimes forget, I think, is that we're really fortunate that when we're able to help somebody, we also get the thank yous. We get somebody whose life you might have made a little bit easier. And sometimes it's simple things, like maybe somebody's unemployment claim has been locked down for 3 months and not able to get through the Division of Unemployment Assistance, and we're able to shake that loose and get them those funds that they deserve and are rightly theirs. And when you do that, all of a sudden that individual, in one example, just 2 weeks ago I had a conversation with somebody. The person called and said, when that money was able to be released, I was able to pay my rent, and I was able to put food on the table for my kids, and so those small kind of thank yous that you get.
Right. So it's not like helping this one family. It's a huge benefit and help to them, even though to a larger scale it looks like it's nothing. It may look like it's nothing, but it's it's big.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is.
It's huge.
And I work with the staff in here who does incredible work. So sometimes, many times, in fact, people will work through one of my staff members, and I might not have direct impact personally on whatever it is that they brought to us that their problem was. But maybe they'll run into me at, Sam Walker's on Montville Avenue and come over to the table and just say, hey, introduce themselves and say, hey, your office is really helpful. So I'm really lucky. I've got, Zach Dollywell is doing great work for us here, Nicole Redigan. I've got, a great housing staff who's doing awesome work for us in the State House right now. And they help our constituents, and they made me look good every darn day. So we're
It's
really
awesome.
fortunate.
You do have great staff,
Yeah.
for sure. Who or what inspires your approach to public service?
I think my family.
Yeah, I can
at the
see
end,
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I mean, I've got 2 portraits in the room here at the State House, one of John F. Kennedy and one of Teddy Roosevelt, and they both represent kind of different things, 2 different parties in many cases. From that perspective, JFK, I think he invigorated people. He certainly gave people a passion for public service. He gave people enthusiasm for public service, which I think is really, really important. And Teddy Roosevelt, I always appreciated and valued because, the guy had courage. He created our national parks.
Yes,
He's somebody
yeah.
who took on, these giant corporations at the time that were not treating workers right and were really not treating the American people right. He was a courageous guy and a real leader. And sometimes you gotta buck the trends and stand up for what you believe in. And he was somebody who did that. So those 2 national figures, but certainly from a kind of fundamental level, my
Right.
family and my
Right,
family's
especially
role.
you were around them day to day, and,
Yeah.
and with the history of your family. I mean,
Yeah.
who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. When you're not at the State House, how do you stay connected with the community and with your family?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have a 3.5-year-old.
I'm getting personal now.
Yeah, I have a 3.5-year-old, almost 4 if you ask her.
Right.
But she's still got the 3 fingers up. She'll do. She won't do the 4 yet.
Still adjusting. Yeah.
But she's my life. My wife is my life, and I'm really fortunate to have a great family and to keep me grounded and to keep me kind of centered, if you will. And I try to get out into the community as much as I can. Last night I was at Lord Hobo playing in a cornhole benefit tournament for the local food pantry.
That's
for the
great.
Council of Social Concern, and I had my former legislative aide, Anthony Langone, who's now on the Woburn Housing Authority, as my partner, and I carried him for a few games, he carried me for a few games, but we had fun. But it's an example of where, you just got to get out there in the community and still stay engaged. And as much as I love Beacon Hill and love my role in here, I'm a kid from Woburn, I live on Wynn Street, and I'll never forget it.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last question, I promise. I know I've trapped you in this room for a long time. For people listening today, what is the best way they can reach out, share their ideas, or get involved in the issues that matter to them?
Yeah. I think the best way you can do it is through the public hearing process. I think that reaching out to our office, helping us understand what you care about, and then letting us connect you with the appropriate legislation, when that is going to be heard, and letting that public hearing process play out is really important, because when you get to go on the record and talk about why something matters to you, that's really impactful for people, I think.
Right.
And sometimes it's, it's different issues. It's not always, sometimes it's affordability and energy. Sometimes it's matters of, coercive control or domestic abuse. Sometimes it's matters of something that people really care about around healthcare or around primary care. It varies, but making sure that people have an opportunity to be able to state their case to their government about why they care about this issue is really important, and something that I think that we're able to really make the connection on.
I agree. I think if we all speak up as a community, right, there may be things that you're not aware of yet that somebody else, an individual family is dealing with, but it's a big issue statewide, citywide. So it's important. Speak up, right? The worst you get is, no, there's nothing we can do, right? Or it's not the right time, or you get redirected to someone else that can help you. But if you stay quiet and you don't seek help, nothing is going to happen.
That's right.
Right? So speak up. Come to you. Have coffee, right?
I always tell
Best.
people when they talk to me on an issue they're having or a constituent matter or whatever the case might be, I tell them, hey, we're going to get you an answer. You might not always love the answer we get you, but we're going to get you an answer. And
Right.
we're going to get you the best answer we can. And hopefully, if something is a no, we're going to do our darndest to get it to be a yes.
Right. Good. And I love that. I see you everywhere, so I feel like it's so easy to find you, right? If you're all over the Woburn.
Yeah.
And then obviously here, so this is great. So thank you so much for...
Thanks for coming in. And
honestly, for taking this interview and
telling
the people what you do.
Yeah, thank you to Woburn Public Media for their
Absolutely.
help
I always forget to say that because they do an amazing job.
Do all this, and hopefully we'll have you guys back.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank
Nora.
you so much again.
Take care.
I appreciate it.